Cryptography sounds like math, but on the Security Plus exam, it is really about matching. The exam hands you a goal and asks which tool fits. Get that habit right, and Objective 1.4 becomes one of the easiest sets of points on the test. Here is the plan. We start with the 4 goals of crypto and the 2 traps that catch everyone. Then we walk PKI and certificates, encryption, hashing, password storage, digital signatures, key exchange, and a hardware that protects keys. We finish with obfuscation and one worked example that ties it all together. Start here, because every question in this objective traces back to one of 4 goals. Cryptography enforces 4 things. Confidentiality means only the key holder reads it. Integrity means you could detect any change. Authenticity means you know who produced it. And non-repudiation means the producer cannot later deny it. Learn the goal first and the algorithm name second. Here is the decision shortcut you will use on every question. Read the goal verb. Hide means encrypt. Detect change means hash. Prove the sender means sign. Share a key means key exchange. Find a verb, and the tool falls out. And here is how CompTIA tests it. The exam describes a need, like prove this file was not altered or store a password, then offers real tools used for the wrong goal. Hashing offered for confidentiality. Encryption offered for non-repudiation. A fast hash offered for password storage. Map the verb to the goal, then to the tool, and the distractors fall away. Before we go deeper, 2 distinctions trip up more candidates than any algorithm name. First trap, encryption versus hashing. Encryption is 2-way. A key reverses it, and its job is confidentiality. Hashing is 1-way. Nothing reverses it, and its job is integrity. If the question asks to recover the original data, it is encryption. If it only asks to detect change, it is hashing. Second trap, symmetric versus asymmetric. Symmetric uses one shared key. It is fast, so it protects bulk data, like AES, the advanced encryption standard. Asymmetric uses a public and private pair. It is slow, so it is used for key exchange and signing, like RSA and ECC real systems combine both. Now the framework that lets you trust a stranger's public key. PKI, public key infrastructure, is the framework that lets you trust a stranger's public key because a recognized authority vouched for it. The output is an X.509 certificate that binds an identity to a key. When your browser trusts a website you have never visited, PKI is the reason. For players run PKI. The certificate authority, or CA, signs certificates with its own private key, and that signature is what clients verify. The registration authority, the RA, vets the requester's identity before issuance. Subscribers are the servers, users, and devices that hold certificates. Relying parties are the clients that validate a certificate before trusting the other end. Keep the 2 keys straight. The public key is shared freely. Others use it to encrypt to you or to verify your signature, so spreading it widely is safe by design. The private key never leaves your control because anyone holding it can impersonate you or decrypt your traffic. Protecting the private key is the entire security model of PKI. Key escrow stores a copy of a private key with a trusted third party, so data can be recovered if the owner loses the key. The exam frames it as a recovery tool. A company can still read an ex-employee's encrypted drive. The trade-off is that the escrow becomes a single point of compromise you must guard tightly. Trust flows down a chain. The root CA stays offline and ships preloaded in your client's trust store. That preloaded root is the root of trust, the anchor every check traces back to. The root signs an intermediate, and the intermediate signs the server, or leaf, certificate. A connection is trusted only when the chain ends at a trusted root and nothing along the way is expired or revoked. A favorite exam scenario. A browser cannot find a trusted issuer for the signing authority. The missing element is a valid root of trust in the client's trust store. Not a longer key, not a SEN entry. Without that anchor, the chain cannot be validated, period. The same warning is exactly why a self-signed certificate gets flagged. To get a certificate, a subscriber sends a CSAR, a certificate signing request. It carries the subject details and the public key, and it is signed by the requester's own private key to prove possession. The key point for the exam: the private key never leaves the server. Only the public key travels to the CA. Certificates sometimes have to be killed early. 3 mechanisms report that. 3 ways to check revocation: a CRL, A certificate revocation list is a signed list of revoked serials the client downloads. Simple, but can grow large and go stale. OCSB, the Online Certificate Status Protocol, asks about one certificate in real time. Fresher, but it adds a round trip and leaks which sites you visit. OCSB stapling fixes that. The server attaches a recent signed status to its handshake, so the client never has to ask. The exam loves this distinction. If it wants a real-time, on-demand revocation check, the answer is OCSB. If it wants fresh proof without each browser contacting the CA and without leaking which sites users visit, the answer is OCSB stapling. A CREL is the downloaded list that can be stale. Read for real-time versus stapled versus downloaded. Certificate validation levels climb in rigor. Domain validated, DV, only proves control of the domain, so it is cheap and fast. Organization validated, OV, verifies the organization behind the domain. Extended validation, EV, applies the most rigorous vetting and historically showed a green address bar. Same encryption strength across all three. What differs is how hard the CA checked who you are. Now certificate scope and source. A wildcard, like star@example.com, covers every host at one subdomain level, www, mail, shop, and future ones too. A subject alternative name, a SEN certificate, lists multiple explicit names on one cert. Self-sign means signed by its own key with no CA, so it works internally but is untrusted publicly. A third-party certificate is signed by a public CA already in trust stores. Watch the wildcard versus SEN split. If the scenario says secure www, mail, shop, and any future first-level subdomain without reissuing, that is open-ended, so the answer is a wildcard. If it names a specific list of unrelated hosts, that is a SEN certificate. And an internal server that signed its own cert triggers an untrusted warning because it is self-signed. Time to scramble data, so only a key holder can read it. Symmetric algorithms first. AES at 128, 192, or 256 bits is the standard block cipher and the default in most policies because it is strong and hardware accelerated. ChaCha20 Poly 1305 is an AAD cipher that is fast where there is no AES hardware, which is why mobile and IoT favorite. 3.D.E.S is legacy and being retired. Mode matters as much as a cipher. GCM, Galois counter mode, gives confidentiality and integrity together through an authentication tag, so it is the preferred mode. CBC, cipher blockchaining, gives confidentiality only and needs a separate MAC to detect tampering. When a question wants fast encryption that also detects tampering in one step, the answer is 8.E.S, G.C.M. Asymmetric algorithms. RSA at 2048 bits or larger is the long-standing default. ECC, elliptic curve cryptography, with curves like curve 25519 or P256, gives equivalent strength at far smaller key sizes, which means less compute and bandwidth. That is why a 256-bit ECC key is the constrained device answer when you want roughly our -3072 strength without the cost. Asymmetric is too slow for big files, so real systems use a hybrid pattern. Generate a random symmetric key. Encrypt that small key with the recipient's public key. Then bulk encrypt the data with a fast symmetric key. You get asymmetric key delivery plus symmetric speed. That is what your TLS session is doing under the hood. One more on key length. Each added bit doubles the key space an attacker must search. But strength is not comparable across families. At the same security level, a 256-bit ECC key is roughly a 3072-bit RSA key, which is roughly A.E.S-128. So a bigger number does not mean stronger when the algorithm differs. Encryption protects data in 3 states. At rest is stored data. Disk encryption like BitLocker, File Vault, and LUKS or database TD. In transit is data crossing a network, TLS 1.3, IPSCC for VPNs, and SSH. In use is data being processed, confidential computing enclaves that run code in encrypted memory. Match the state to the control. Data at rest can be encrypted at different granularities, and the exam tests which level fits. Full disk encrypts the entire drive, transparent once you unlock. Partition encrypts a single partition. Volume encrypts one logical volume as a unit, and a volume can span multiple disks, like an LVM logical volume. Pick the level by the unit you must protect. The finer levels. File encryption protects individual files, and the protection travels with the file, so a copied file stays encrypted, like Windows EFS database encrypts the whole database. Often via TD record level encrypts a single field, column, or row, leaving other columns usable and searchable. So a copied document that must stay encrypted points to file level, and one protected column points to record level. 2 clean level traps. Encrypt one sensitive column while the rest stays searchable. That is record level, not full disk. A copied document that must stay encrypted on a USB stick. That is file level, because full disk decrypts transparently once unlocked. And one encryption layer over disks aggregated by LVM is volume level. Read for the unit of protection. Switch goals now from confidentiality to integrity. A hash is a one-way function that turns any input into a fixed-length fingerprint. Its goal is integrity. The same input always yields the same digest, and any change, even 1 bit, produces a completely different one. There is no key and no way to reverse it. You compare fingerprints to confirm nothing changed. Know which hashes are alive. S.H.A-256, 384, and 512 are the current standards for integrity checks. S.H.A-3 is a newer design, the sponge construction, kept as a hedge against future S.H.A-2 weakness. M.D.5 and S.H.A-1 are broken. Practical collisions exist, so they only fit non-security uses like deduplication. If a question offers M.D.5 or S.H.A-1 for anything security related, it is wrong. A plain hash proves integrity, but not who sent it. Add a shared secret key and you get a MAC, a message authentication code. HMA.C. S.H.A.256 is a keyed hash that proves integrity and authenticity at once, because only parties sharing the secret can produce or verify the tag. It runs inside TLS and most API request signing. Here is the HMAC trap. It gives integrity and authentication, but not non-repudiation. Why? Both sides share the same key, so either one could have produced the tag. You cannot prove which. Non-repudiation needs a private key unique to one signer, which means a digital signature, not an HMAC. The single most tested integrity scenario: how to store a password. Never store passwords with a plain, fast hash, because attackers can hash billions of guesses per second on a GPU. Assault is a unique random value added per user before hashing. It defeats pre-computed rainbow tables and guarantees 2 users with the same password get different stored hashes. SALT makes mass cracking start from scratch for every account. SALT is only half the defense. Key stretching is the deliberate slowdown, a cost factor or iteration count, that turns one guess into thousands of internal operations. It does not change the password. It just makes every single guess expensive, so testing billions per second collapses to a trickle. SALT plus stretching is the standard. Use a deliberately slow, memory hard function. Argon 2 is the current best in class, both memory hard and tunable. BCRYPT is intentionally slow with a tunable cost factor. SCRYPT is memory hard, which resists GPU and ASIC cracking. P.B.K.DF2 is acceptable, especially where the others are not available, and relies on many iterations. Any of these beats a bare S.H.A-256. The classic password trap. A developer stores passwords as a single round of S.H.A-256. The strongest objection is not that S.H.A-256 is reversible, because it is not. The real problem is that a fast, unsalted hash enables rainbow tables and high-speed brute force. The fix is a salt plus a slow function like Argon 2, BCRYPT, or SCRYPT. Now the only primitive that delivers non-repudiation. A digital signature works in 2 moves. The signer hashes the message, then encrypts that hash with their own private key. That encrypted hash is the signature. To verify, the receiver decrypts the signature with the signer's public key to recover the hash, recomputes the hash of the message, and compares. A match proves the message is unaltered, authentic, and non-repudiable. 1 signature, 3 assurances. Integrity, because verification recomputes and compares the hash. Authenticity, because only the private key holder could have produced it. And non-repudiation, because the signer cannot plausibly deny a signature only their private key could create. That third one is unique to signatures. No hash and no HMEC gives it. This is the most reverse pair on the exam, so burn it in. Signing uses the sender's private key. Encryption for confidentiality uses the recipient's public key. So if a finance worker must send a report only the partner can read, encrypt with the partner's public key. If a vendor must prove it produced a build, sign with the vendor's private key. Swapping those two is a classic distractor. Where you see signatures, code signing, so users trust an installer came from the vendor. Software updates, so a device only accepts genuine firmware. Signed email, through SIME or PGP. And signed documents, like a signed PDF. Each one is integrity plus authenticity plus non-repudiation bound to a private key. 2 strangers need a shared secret over a wire an attacker may be watching. Diffie-Hellman, DH, lets both sides derive the same secret from public exchanges, so the secret itself never crosses the wire. D-Chi, ephemeral Diffie-Hellman, generates fresh keys per session. ECD-Chi, the elliptic curve ephemeral version, is the modern default. Smaller keys, faster math, and forward secrecy. When a question says 2 parties who never met must agree on a key, think Diffie-Hellman. Forward secrecy is the reason ephemeral matters. It means a later theft of the server's long-term private key cannot decrypt past recorded sessions, because each session used a throwaway key that was discarded. TLS 1.3 mandates forward secrecy through ephemeral key exchange. Static RSA key exchange does not provide it, which is why it is gone in 1.3. The forward secrecy trap. The scenario says 2 systems that never communicated must agree on a key. In a future compromise of a long-term, key must not decrypt this session. That is forward secrecy. So the answer is ephemeral. ECD-Chi static RSA derives from the long-term key and fails. A pre-shared key fails the never-met condition. A specific integrity structure CompTIA wants you to recognize. A blockchain is a ledger where each block embeds the hash of the previous block. Alter a past entry, and its hash changes, which breaks every block after it. So you would have to rewrite the whole chain and outcompute the network. It is distributed across many nodes, append-only, consensus-controlled, and integrity-assured. CompTIA also calls it an open public ledger. Keep blockchain in proportion. It is one option for tamper-evident logging and non-repudiation, not a universal answer. The integrity comes from hash chaining, not from encryption, and the entries are usually not secret. If a simpler hash or signature meets the need, prefer it. Hardware and services that protect the keys themselves. For tools protect keys. A TPM is a chip on one motherboard that stores keys and platform measurements, which is what lets BitLocker bind a drive to that hardware and verify boot. An HSM is a tamper-resistant, often network-attached appliance that safeguards many keys for a fleet and does crypto inside the boundary. A KMS centralizes key generation, storage, rotation, and policy, often in the cloud. A secure enclave is an isolated region of the main processor, holding keys and biometric templates apart from the OS. The most tested tool trap is TPM versus HSM. One laptop, binding a disk key to that machine and verifying boot, points to a TPM protecting a whole fleet's keys from extraction, often network attached, points to an HSM. And if a key must never be exportable even by an administrator, that is an HSM because the key never leaves the boundary. Last topic, and a trap-heavy one, hiding data without encryption. Obfuscation hides meaning, but, unlike encryption, reverses with no key. Steganography hides data inside other data, like a file tucked into an image, so the existence of the message is hidden. Tokenization swaps a sensitive value for a meaningless token, with the real value in a separate vault, which keeps systems out of PCI scope. Data masking replaces a value with realistic fake data, like showing only the last 4 digits. The big warning, obfuscation is not encryption. Base 64, renaming symbols, and steganography make data harder to read, but reverse with no key. Encryption makes data unreadable without the key. So if a question implies the protection must hold even when the attacker knows the method, the answer is encryption, not obfuscation. A base 64. Encoded secret is still a leaked secret. Sort the 3 obfuscation methods cleanly. Keep real card data out of PKI scope with a vault-back surrogate. Tokenization. Show only the last 4 digits on screen. Data masking. Hide a spreadsheet inside a vacation photo, so nobody knows a message exists. Steganography. Each maps to a different goal, and the exam tests exactly which. Let's put it all together the way the exam wants you to reason. A vendor sends a software build over the internet. The customer needs 3 things. The file stays private in transit, proof it was not altered, and proof the vendor produced it. Map each goal to one control. Confidentiality is 8.E.S-256G.C.M. Integrity is S.H.A-256. Authenticity and non-repudiation are a private key digital signature, and the key gets delivered with ECD for forward secrecy. Each control maps to exactly one goal. Lock in the big ideas. Encryption is 2-way for confidentiality. Hashing is 1-way for integrity. Symmetric is one fast shared key for bulk data. Asymmetric is a slow key pair for exchange and signing. Digital signatures are the only primitive that gives non-repudiation. Store passwords with a salt plus a slow function. And PKI trust always traces back to a root of trust. 2 memory hooks to carry into the exam. Think CN. Encryption is confidentiality. Hashing is integrity. Signature is authenticity and non-repudiation. And the decision shortcut. Read the goal verb. Hide it means encrypt. Detect change means hash. Prove the sender means sign. Share a key means key exchange. Remember, TPM anchors one machine, while HSM protects many keys and obfuscation hides but never encrypts. That is objective 1.4, cryptographic solutions. Go practice it where the matching becomes automatic. All of Domain 1 is free at SecPlusMastery.com, with lessons, practice questions, and hands-on labs. Drill these distinctions until the goal verb instantly points you at the tool.